I thought my marriage was unbreakable until I discovered her betrayal. I had it all. The perfect wife, the dream home, and a future so bright it felt like we were living in a movie. Sarah and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. We were the couple everyone envied, the ones who still held hands at dinner parties, who laughed at inside jokes no one else understood, and who seemed to have it all figured out. Our friend group was tight-knit, a circle of trust we'd built over years of shared vacations, game nights, and late-night conversations. Life was good. Too good, as it turns out. It started with the little things. Sarah, who used to text me throughout the day with random thoughts or funny memes, suddenly went quiet. Her replies became short, almost robotic. Busy at work, she'd say, or just tired. I brushed it off at first. We all have off days, right? But then there were the late nights at the office, the sudden interest in working out with a friend after work, and the way she'd scroll through her phone with a faint smile, only to lock it the second I walked into the room. The first real red flag came during a dinner party at our place. Sarah was laughing a little too hard at something Mark, one of our closest friends, had said. Mark was the life of the party, charming, witty, and always the center of attention. I didn't think much of it at the time. But then I caught them exchanging a glance across the room, a look that lingered just a second too long. My stomach dropped, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Mark was like a brother to me. He'd been my best man at our wedding, for God's sake. The cracks kept growing. Sarah started coming home with excuses that didn't quite add up. Traffic was terrible, she'd say, even though her office was only 15 minutes away. I had to run errands, she'd claim, but there were no bags in her hands. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut, but it was getting harder to pretend everything was fine. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. Sarah had fallen asleep on the couch, her phone still clutched in her hand. I told myself I wouldn't look. I shouldn't look. But the doubt was eating me alive. I gently pried the phone from her grip and unlocked it. Her password was still our anniversary, a small detail that somehow made everything worse. What I found shattered me. Texts between her and Mark. Dozens of them. Flirty, intimate, and unmistakably damning. My heart raced as I scrolled through their conversations, each message a knife to the chest. They'd been meeting up for months, hotel rooms, late-night drives, even our own home when I was out of town. The betrayal was so deep, so calculated, that I felt physically sick. I woke Sarah up, my hands shaking as I confronted her. At first, she denied it. Then, when I showed her the texts, she broke down. I didn't mean for it to happen, she sobbed. It just did. Just did. Those 2 words echoed in my mind as our world crumbled around us. I kicked her out that night, and the fallout was immediate. Our friend group imploded. Some took her side, others mine. Mark, the man I'd called my brother, disappeared without a word. The life I'd built, the love, the trust, the future I thought we had, was gone in an instant. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their texts, their lies, their betrayal. I replayed every moment of the past year, searching for signs I'd missed. Had I been too trusting? Too blind? Too naive? Sarah tried to reach out. She left voicemails, sent emails, even showed up at the house once, begging for a chance to explain. But what was there to explain? The evidence was right there, in black and white. She'd made her choice, and it wasn't me. The hardest part was losing my friends. Our social circle had been my lifeline, my second family. But now, every gathering felt like a minefield. Some people avoided me altogether, unsure of whose side to take. Others tried to play mediator, urging me to work things out with Sarah. But how could I? How could I ever trust her again? Mark, of course, was nowhere to be found. He blocked me on everything, social media, phone, email. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. Part of me wanted to confront him, to demand answers. But another part of me knew it wouldn't change anything. The damage was done. Months passed, and I slowly began to rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would keep my mind off the pain. I started therapy, which helped me process my emotions and regain some sense of self-worth. I even reconnected with old friends who'd drifted away over the years. But the real turning point came when I decided to take a solo trip. I'd always wanted to visit Iceland, and with nothing holding me back, I booked a ticket and went. It was there, standing under the northern lights, that I realized something: I was still here. I was still me. And I deserved better than what Sarah and Mark had done to me. When I returned, I felt stronger, more resolute. I filed for divorce, cutting the final tie that bound me to the past. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. A year after the initial discovery, I ran into Mark at a mutual friend's wedding. I hadn't seen him since everything went down, and the sight of him sent a surge of anger through me. But instead of avoiding him, I decided to confront him. I walked up to him, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. He looked startled but nodded. We stepped outside, away from the noise of the reception. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I broke the silence. "Why?" I asked. "Why her? Why us?" Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "That's not good enough," I snapped. "You were my best friend. You were supposed to have my back." "I know," he said quietly. "And I'll regret it for the rest of my life." His apology didn't fix anything, but it did give me a sense of closure. I realized then that I didn't need his remorse to move on. I was already on my way. Today, I'm in a much better place. The pain hasn't completely gone away, but it's no longer all-consuming. I've learned to trust again, to love again, and to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. Sarah and I are officially divorced, and she's since moved to another city. Mark and I are no longer in contact, and that's for the best. As for our old friend group, some relationships have mended, while others have faded away. And that's okay. Life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright cruel. But it's also full of second chances, new beginnings, and unexpected joys. I'm living proof of that. If you've ever been through something like this, you know how it feels. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the confusion. I'm sharing my story because I don't want to feel alone in this. If you've been here, tell me how you got through it. Let's build a community where we can support each other, because no one should have to face this kind of pain alone. I thought my marriage was unbreakable until I discovered my wife was cheating on me with one of my closest friends. The betrayal destroyed not just our relationship, but our entire social circle. And if you want more stories like this, raw, real, and unfiltered, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like, comment, and share your own experiences.